How are you?
Hey there.
Hey.
I'm good. How are you?
Trying to get through the COVID, girl.
That was yeah, okay. Well, we are live, so you all want to introduce yourselves?
My name is Venita. I'm joining you from Cromwell,
Rick?
Connecticut. Welcome.
Welcome.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rick in Queens, New York.
Welcome, welcome. And I'm Logan Michelle Odom in Brooklyn, New York. And this is our book, The Coming Plague, Newly Emerging Diseases in a World Out of Balance by Laurie Garrett. And it's a thick one. She puts everything you ever thought you might want to know about the circumstances surrounding the hunt of new diseases. And did you guys get to see the updated schedule that I did?
Yes.
It's in our private group. So anyway, I just don't want to forget. So next week is just the remainder of chapter 5 on Ebola. And what else? Okay. So you all ready?
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. Say something. What's the most interesting thing you've learned so far in this chapter? There's a summary. I think I wrote a summary, right? Short summary?
Yeah, there's a summary.
Somebody want to read that?
Sure. So, a mysterious disease breaks out in Zaire and Sudan in August of 1976. The first half of chapter 5, Yambuku, Ebola, focuses on the outbreak surrounding the Zairean village of Yambuku, where a Catholic mission operated by Belgians, former colonists, include a hospital that sees the first cases of a deadly new disease. With a 90% death rate, international attention is spiked by the mysterious illness with similarities to the Marburg virus. Ultimately, a team of 500 virus hunters would be dispatched to the local area to learn how the virus spread, how it could be stopped, and how infected people could be saved. Logistics, language, culture, and politics would make for a challenging international response to the Ebola virus.
All right. So, Venita, can you hear Rick clearly?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it comes out okay on the tape. I think I just have a really slow connection. Okay. So who wants to? Somebody start the dialogue.
Take it away, Rick.
I don't know. Diversity is actually a strength. When you look at you always think about the Babel Tower story in the Bible where people speaking different languages from different walks of life could not work together. Therefore, you have to submit to God, and you are all sinners. But you look at all the people who were there. You have French, South Africans, Zaireans. You have people who speak several languages. You have people who were sickened by horrible diseases. Others who are callous, and like the French guy who smokes cigarettes all the time. Oh, I think we lost Michelle. Yep, we did.
Okay, well, we can continue until she comes back.
Sure. So, but for once, it's actually what makes this team strong because nobody knows the truth. So having all these people from all these different experiences share their knowledge with all the limitations, but acknowledging it and drinking a lot of wine helps a lot. So, it's interesting to see that what is actually, are you guys around?
I'm here.
You're here? How about you, Michelle?
Yes.
I'm here. I did get
I know.
I did get knocked out, but I'm back.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that, that diversity is a strength, because when you don't know what's afflicting people, you need different ways of thinking. So having people who were born and raised in Zaire, and people who were born and raised in Belgium, and people who were all coming together with the same passion for a mystery, that's why you get such a great team. And what we're losing right now is because of all the debates between, immigration and stuff. We have to not forget a lot of people who are extremely competent are barred from several countries. And you think about all the Zairian doctors who, if they came to now, Congolese doctors who would came to America or Canada, would have to be cab drivers because their diplomas are not recognized in the West. But that's the thing,
Yeah.
that I kept from that chapter is that diversity is a strength. And even Mobutu, who hated South Africa's apartheid, was like, yeah, let's be reasonable. Okay, send us the anti-serum, please. You know, a common enemy helps people come together. Well, you would think.
Right. Right. And also, I think it was really challenging dealing with the peace in the Sudan, where they had the multiple languages, the multiple religions, the whole animist thing going on, the nomadic, piece. That was a major challenge. So I'm anxious to learn as we go through the rest of the chapter how all that plays out. But at least at this point, it looks like they were able to collect some of the blood and tissue samples from that area. But that was a major accomplishment. Yeah. Yeah, I got that too, Rick, that the diversity really was a strength. And I was impressed that despite the political differences, like the differences between Zaire and Belgium, and Zaire and South Africa, really, really deep divisions, that they could put that aside in the interest of public health. And it's hard to imagine our current government being manage that.
They
I mean, we can't stay in the who.
The U.S. government is cutting all ties to international organizations, public health organizations, epidemic, and WHO. Nobody is immune to criticism, but these organizations have proven their efficacy in the past and their effectiveness. Sorry, and the problem is, he knew. We all learned that today. He knew how lethal it was. If I knew January 10th how lethal it was when nobody would believe me, of course, the president of the United States was informed of that, because people knew that, the first report, secret, services, worldwide reports are November of last year, because they had noticed something odd through satellite images. There were parking lots at hospitals, the west of Wuhan, that were getting filled. So why? So they have models, and that's what epidemiology is all about. It's incredible science that requires several skills: maths, biology, but also some knowledge of different languages and traditions. They warned that this might be the famous new flu we were expecting, and so they knew. And the thing is, here's the problem. It is a little strange in this context, but when you think about it, when you have an ex-colonial power helping an ex-colony that hated them because of what they had horrifically done to them, that's amount to genocide and torture and slavery, for about 70 years, it still took, unfortunately, powerful nations like the United States or France to step in, which says something, is that what we need in epidemiology and around the world is a low authority. The problem is, how does this authority manifest itself when it's the people who hold that authority are like Donald Trump? Well, it falls apart because, and that's the whole thing with the smallpox campaign, forcing people to vaccinate. And I'm a staunch partisan of vaccination. It is wrong because if that falls into the wrong hands, you have something that amounts to violence and oppression, and not just benefits. So I think that's the whole problem with epidemics. It's like wars. They reveal people, and it's up to the people of goodwill to show themselves. But here's another thing: people of goodwill, look at the French guy with cigarettes. You look at the South African scientists, etc., etc. What they all have in common, despite their different attitudes, is extremely disciplined, brutal teaching when they were children of scientific theories, the European style, the American style of old school, which was, you do not create, you do not think, you just take in. And when you'll be old and experience, maybe you can open your mouth. It has very negative effect on a lot of populations, but unfortunately that's how you create an elite of scientists, people who really have it as a second nature. And our educational system around the world right now has favored money over being a discoverer. So we have a full generation, my generation, of idiots. We don't have great scientists. Einstein was 35 when he came up with his equation of general relativity. Niels Bohr was his 30s, and all these guys in the book are in his 20s, 30s, 40s, early 20s, some of them. What happened to that? What happened to that model? And you see the Zaire doctors were the same. Young people, full of they could have made money, but no. So what happened to that is my question. What happened to this incredible academic world that was able to move mountains with nothing? Well, no, not in that case. They got a lot of money for once.
And I think it, goes back to what you said about diversity being a strength. Intelligence comes in all kinds of packages. And if we only nurture and develop the intelligence in certain packages, then that's all we'll have. We just won't have what other people in the world can offer to a problem. So, Venita,
Well,
let me hear your voice.
I was most impressed by how well they listened to each other. No one, it's not like anyone questioned anyone's other doctor, I should say, or other scientists question their abilities. In our country, people spend too much time telling you what they know. They want you to know what they know. We don't listen to anything. We just, and it's not just your generation. It really isn't, Rick. Believe me, it's not. It's my generation too. They're so busy trying to tell you what they know.
And did you notice?
And pass judgment on you and assume that you don't know.
Oh yeah, that's tougher.
Which is our worst enemy here, and that's on any level, personal level, professional level, any level. That's our problem. Everyone wants to tell you what they know, and I noticed the scientists, they work very differently, and that's why they were experts in their fields. They were very focused. They knew what they knew. They weren't busy trying to tell you what they knew. They showed what they knew by how they moved, and what they accomplished. They knew how to exchange ideas intelligently. I was more impressed with that than anything else. As far as other countries coming in, well, of course, Brussels, they're too busy trying to, trying to clean up their disgusting reputation. So they're trying to be all cool and quiet and yes, this gonna help the black folk over here in Zaire, you know. And I found that quite amazing too. The people that abused the folks in Africa, which is each and every country, probably that came in there, ones I don't even know of, you know. When it came to science and it came to humans' lives at this point, and more so than anything, science, they were all able to come together to save people that they abused.
I'm not going. I'm going to be not as nice as you are. I think that what the
I'm
book
trying to be
doesn't say.
diplomatic, Rick. I'm trying to be
No,
diplomatic.
but I think what the book doesn't say is that Belgium, as well as all the countries in the world, were really fast sending a ton of money to Zaire. Why? That region is where uranium, diamonds,
Well,
coal comes from. You can't afford to have the
yeah.
destabilization of our interests. So I think the book forgets that, because
Well, the book
look at what
mentioned it.
happened in Bolivia. They didn't believe it at first. They were like, ah, no, it's probably,
No.
malaria or something. When they heard first about Ebola, they were like, we can't take
Yeah.
a risk in that
Yeah.
place of the world where we rely on
Well,
important
yeah.
resources.
Yes. Well, being black for 60 something years now, I know, and most black awake folks know, that anytime you have white folks, the oppressor, mind you, that come to your rescue is because you have what they want. We know that. That's
Yeah.
here, that's in
Mm-hmm.
Zaire, that's any place that your ass is black, Rick. So
No, it is.
everybody's coming together because we know that Africa is rich in everything. We
But
know
at
that.
least there's one thing that Africans respect of Europeans. Europeans don't try to hide it anymore. You know,
Well, no,
we know.
because we
I mean,
know that if we don't give you what you want, you will take what you want.
oh
So
no,
I
it's
already
worse
know
than
because
that. Think about how the French are doing it.
oh,
They destabilized the region while
oh yeah,
leaving.
yeah,
So then they told the African leaders, hey, you know what? We can send you our army,
yeah,
stays there. When you
yeah,
have a revolt, we stop it.
yeah,
Unless you're not kind to us. In that case, we'll
yeah,
change the government. Oh,
yeah,
people will suffer. We don't care. There's a civil war. We don't care.
yeah,
It takes us 10 minutes.
yeah.
And that's so, this is what the book, I think, misses in that chapter, is this whole context of colonialism
Mm-hmm.
that is not stressed enough, because the Belgian, what I didn't like about the book is, and I respect what happened to the Belgian nurses, but they're not nurses.
No, they're
They,
not.
the arrogance of, if you, even in that time in the 70s, if a hospital in Europe had been built with nuns in it who had no training whatsoever except for 2 or 3
Right.
who had it would have been an outrage. It would have shut down. But in
Yeah.
Africa, it's good enough.
Well,
And
yeah.
that's another thing the book doesn't say. Delicately, the book says they didn't take proper precautions. The book is wrong. They were they were not humble. And so they did not notice that bleeding to death from a fever is not normal until it was one of them who got infected, one of their friends. So you see, there's always this thing that the book, it's nice, the whole diversity thing, but let's not forget that there's a background behind it that's kind of really dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle.
Well, they did mention, I think that they did mention in the book, just maybe one sentence, that, of course, Belgium, wanted to do their so-called part because of the way they slaughtered the people in the Congo. You know what I'm saying? I think they mentioned
But
it.
it's not
And
really.
I guess we're supposed to be grateful, but they were really they claim to try to clean up their reputation, type thing. You can't clean that up.
Yeah, they just wanted Mobutu to have them clean enough to the public opinion so Belgium could prospect again in the regions of the Great
Again,
Lakes.
yeah.
I'm European, so I know how we think. Like, yeah, sure, it's for humanitarian reasons, and a lot of humanitarian airplanes are full with weapons.
Yes, yes.
One
We know.
part for customs
Yeah,
is
yeah,
medicine, and the other part is weapons. So
yes. And that's why, of course, we even knew during the time of exploration many years ago when the Europeans set out. At first, they were just scientists. Then after a while, that ching ching got in their eyes, and they're like, well, I
they
think we
got
need
gold.
a army on these ships now. But they were really scientists initially. They were doing the explorations to find untouched, civilization. And then when they did find it, like, well, we can bend these people over, get the army. Then the ships came in with scientists and the armies. I mean, it's really amazing that they didn't touch bases on that. She can only write so much, but it was just that's what I was thinking while I was reading that. It's like, oh my gosh, really? They can care less whether you live or die in Zaire or anywhere else. Be real,
Absolutely.
Anyways, Michelle, you back?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm over here doing troubleshooting because I'm having such a hard time hearing you guys, and I keep getting knocked out of the stream. So I've been, I have no idea what you're talking about. I have been over here trying to figure out what the problem is.
Okay.
What I miss?
No, just saying that, colonialism is in the background and the book doesn't show it enough.
Colonialism
is in the background,
Yeah.
and Laurie Garrett doesn't understand how fundamental it is to how even that diversity is possible. And so there's a dark background behind this great story, apparently.
Mhm.
And we're saying they're not there for public health. They're there because resources.
My sense is that she gets it because she, notes it at all. I think she's just trying to bring in so many different elements of this story. I know, at one point they say there were 500 scientists that ended up, being involved in Zaire on the Ebola investigation. And she hasn't named all 500, but it seems like she's named a lot. And I think she's trying to give so much detail, and I don't know, I don't know how much we can really absorb in one story. I saw something, I looked up some of these names, and I didn't find a lot, just doing a general Google search on Carl Johnson, Pat Webb, Peter Pio. How do you say that? Pio?
Yeah.
Pio.
But I found some stuff. And I found a little article where Carl Johnson was saying that Laurie Garrett had gotten some things right, but some things wrong in the coming plague. But my reaction to that was, yeah, but my God, she is trying to pull in so many little details that, how can you not get some of it wrong? And one of the other stories I found was about Peter Pio saying that, as history has been told, he's been given primary credit for discovering Ebola and naming Ebola, even though that clearly is not true, and that has created some little bad feelings in the scientific community. But it's like just kind of a shorthand, it seems like. Just a regular reporter writing about the story is not going to list the 500 people involved.
But Pio,
but I can see how egos get really bruised in this kind of thing.
Now, what I'm saying is how Laurie Garrett describes it. Pio is indeed the official discoverer, because in virology, you don't discover a disease when you see the symptoms, but when you identify the pathogen visually. And he did. This all strange virus looking like a little snake, like a question mark. It had never been seen ever in virology. So the fact of observing it Unfortunately, it doesn't mean a lot that you discovered the virus, because it takes a lot of time to get to the discovery, and everybody who worked before, is part of the discovery. So that's why it's a little dumb to say those things, but I don't think Pio made money out of it. That's the thing people don't realize. You don't make money out of discovering a virus. You don't. Out of finding a cure, you do.
That's why pharmaceuticals are traded on the NASDAQ. And they got much money as Jesus.
They weren't always like that. They used to be paid by taxpayers, but we decided to privatize because we don't want to pay a lot of taxes.
And that's what that person up in the White House wants to do. They want to privatize everything. Everything. And actually, they're doing a good job at it. It's been moving that way before they got there. But they're really doing a good job at privatizing most things. Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Is she gone? Oh, you're there. I thought you're gone.
Yeah, I'm here. But there's clearly a lot of ego stuff that goes on, with this kind of work. And then the whole thing with Pat Webb, who had done some of that initial work for the CDC, who is the one that recruited Bremen, who is the one that was first trying to organize the mission to go to Zaire, for the CDC to go to Zaire. And then the director of CDC, David Sensor, turns around and sends her husband, Carl Johnson.
He was upset.
And she was mad as a hatter, and rightfully so. Carl Johnson obviously would be good in any scenario, but why couldn't Laurie be included on, as a part of the delegation?
Sexism.
And just this, she had been to Bolivia, so it's not like she was delicate.
Sexism.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. It's in the scientific community as well.
Think about something. America didn't want to send a woman, but South Africa did. Right. And South Africa at that time was an apartheid country. So that gives you an idea. That puts things into perspective. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah.
It's
all amazing. When they said private I wasn't amazed by that, because everybody wants to get a piece of the rock. There's some people that are fond of the Nobel Peace Prizes.
There's one who'd like to get one.
They're fond of that. They're called scholars. And there's some that are there, they'll go out there and enrich their lives, and it's their life mission, and But there are scientists there. That's why you have 500 of them, because some of them there were very fond of the Nobel Peace Prize.
And also being part of history books.
History books, money. Right. But, so everybody was trying to get a piece of the rock. It wasn't necessarily because, oh my God, the Negroes are dying over in Zaire.
No, but for a lot of them,
it was. It might come to, if it's epidemic, of course, it can spread throughout the world. That was the problem. But if it was just over there, you wouldn't have no 500 scientists jumping on nowhere to go nowhere and go through all that bullshit. Okay.
But they have.
That's the unique thing. That's the unique thing about pandemics. That's what makes this so unique. Because if it was just indicative to one area, especially with the brown and black folk that are poor, nobody would give a damn. But because it can spread all over the world, and it can affect the Europeans and all the white people, let's be real about it. Then it becomes, oh my God, we got to. Well, except for the Trumpers, they don't need no mask.
However, there is, if you look everywhere from Carl Johnson to the French guy to the Zairian doctors, you always have at the beginning people who are truly passionate and who move
Yes.
everything around to get attention, and they get attention usually not when they show the problem, yeah, so
Right.
people are dying, but when the problem's not going away and it's spreading, and now the government's like, wait, maybe we should take
Mm-hmm.
that seriously. But at first, remember, it's always except for Ebola. Why? Because what's the
Yes.
fatality rate? 90 per what in the region where we have our diamonds and oil and
Right.
all that stuff.
Right.
But we're sending a full team of 500 scientists from 20 nations with $10 million right away. HIV started in a region where there was no money, no resources.
Yeah.
Nobody went. Nobody cared
Well,
until it
we
was
do
too
the
late.
we do the same thing here. There are lots of diseases. I, for one, have lupus. Not enough people have died. The right people have died.
Not enough. No. Yeah. Oh,
The right
not
people,
rich, wealthy people
not
who are
enough
like
people, but the right
doing commercials.
people,
Yeah.
right, have died. That's what happened with AIDS. Not enough
Mhm.
people, that not the right people had died. Then when it started hitting Hollywood, for all the 6'4" leading gay men that I always thought were straight, but that's when it became an issue. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, oh my God, we have to do something about this. You know,
But it's horrible. It's like in France, the moment they started paying attention is because in 1984 they transfused blood that was contaminated to children. But the
yes,
horrible thing about that is that people realize, oh, so it can happen to all of us by accident.
that's what it
No, the
is.
problem is even if you're gay and having sex with a million people, nobody deserves that, and everybody should
No,
think it's important. But we
no,
have moral judgment
that's right.
thrown at the face of patients,
That's right.
cancer patients or COVID patients. Oh, now there's
Anything.
a new shaming. If you get COVID, people say you must have been not cautious enough. You probably
Right.
contaminated people. Now there's COVID shame on patients who don't deserve this because you're a patient. A disease is not something you desire. I mean, it's horrible, but you feel it from HIV to COVID. What's in Ebola as well. Remember, the villagers burn
Sure.
people in their homes,
Yes.
and you see the
Yes.
panic. You see how, yeah, pandemics are like wars. They transform human
Yes.
beings into dogs, to animals. Even dogs are not that horrible, but
A lot of folks don't want to get tested. A lot of folks, I spoke, talk to folks that are in the business world that don't want to be tested, just randomly tested, so we can do tracing. You know, so we have because it's a responsibility if I am positive and asymptomatic. Now I have to tell all the folks at work. Then I have to tell all the folks I came in contact with. So you got people that I've talked to and that told me that's the reason why they will not be tested. Because a lot of responsibility comes with that. You know, if you're tested, you have to shut the whole office down and you come out positive. You have to shut the school down when you come out positive. That
no
so
government support.
that's what I'm
Well,
telling you.
yeah, and
People not being tested because of that reason. It is, and I understand it's a huge responsibility if it comes out positive and with no support.
and
And the way people, our country, all of a sudden you become this, grotesque person, So anyway,
one of the things that was a little bit surprising to me in this story was the number of accidents, the number of just poor management skills going on, test tubes breaking, deadly diseases being shipped across Europe like it's
Welcome to France.
everyday man. It was like, really?
What I love is
Yeah,
when
working in laboratories that were like high school labs, showing up to do autopsies and collect tissue and sample without any PPE.
yep.
okay.
It was like, I know it's 1976, but damn, y'all could do better than this.
And
It was pretty sad.
That's what makes the United States so shameful. Because we're not in 1976. We have fabulous labs. We have fabulous scientists and doctors and enough PPE to get the damn world. And what are we doing? Nothing. That's why it's even more shameful. They were working with a chisel and a rock and still managed to contain, aka conquer, these pandemics. So who looks worse, them or us? I say us.
And also, here's the problem. Remember, they had labeled the WHO, everybody, Switzerland, had labeled it as Marburg virus, so it's not airborne. But I love
Yes.
when he opens a package and he gets a phone call. He's like, "So, what's the problem?" And the guy says, "Did you open? Oh my God! Oh my!" And the guy's like,
Yeah.
What really shocked me is not that
Yeah.
you don't know, what happens. But what shocked me is that he did not quarantine right away.
No, he didn't.
None of them who were exposed, like Pio. Pio goes into Kinshasa at night with his. You don't know if the virus is not there already.
Nope.
None of them take that seriously for them. And this
Right.
is again the colonial thing. Despite all their greatest intentions, this is exotic. They're gonna go home at one point. They're
Right.
not gonna die.
Yeah.
Let's have a little fun. It's a
Yeah.
mystery. But you have 44 villages where the fatality rate is 90%.
Every
And
nun
they're not
died.
escaping
Every
these
nun
people.
died. All the nuns died. How many was it? I know at one point she said they
So,
all was dead.
17
I
out
was
of
like,
22 die. Yeah.
thank you. Everybody
Right.
died.
That first guy, Antoine, had 21, right?
Yeah.
21 family and friends that he infected. 18
Yeah.
died.
18 died. Those
And
odds.
So,
I just thought of something.
but those kinds of
Laurie Garrett actually starts her book
missteps were
about that.
amazing.
Laurie Garrett actually starts her book about a tourist, Antoine, who had his first vacation in 44 years.
Yes.
It was so cool. So you have an African man who is not supposed to get any vacation in his life at that time because of the misery and the difficulties in what we used to call the third world. But he goes on a vacation and he dies off of it. Whereas you have this whole parabola of the scientists doing cool science tourism, if you think about it, but they will go home. So it's interesting to see it starts with a tourist, and the people who come save the day are still tourists.
Yeah, they are.
The question is, what after that? Because here's my question: what are the controls? Because if those diseases happen in a lot of emerging countries, but they leave. Remember malaria? Oh, it's not working by 1973, 63. Goodbye. They leave, and they leave the place to be even more chaotic because new diseases appear and there's still no infrastructure. The reason why Europe and America are not affected by Ebola is that we notice right away because we have tons of infrastructure. Somebody comes in sick, we have computers. Hey, these symptoms are strange. CDC gets the symptoms, sends to Paris. When you're in the middle of Maridi in South Sudan, the whole 30 people at the hospital died. Nobody knew until like 6 months later. Oh,
Yeah.
that showcases that inequality in the world creates pandemics.
Yes. Yes.
No
Mhm.
infrastructure, just being humanitarian is not good enough. Not good enough. You need to stay there and
Mhm.
give the people the means to be autonomous, but that's not cool because, bananas are not expensive in Europe because we get them for free, technically. Even if people are so-called paid, that's not enough money to live. So you know what I mean?
Right.
We don't really care about having this place to become autonomous because if Africa was autonomous, all these countries had finally their sovereignty. I don't think in America and France we would see that many bananas anymore, or coffee, or chocolate, or uranium, or diamonds, or oil, or gas, or wood.
Exactly.
The list goes on.
Are we froze?
Michelle?
Either that or she's asleep. Michelle? She's froze.
Uh, you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
You're
you.
froze though.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I froze. I don't know. I'm gonna when I'm online during the day, it seems to be okay. But there's something about this time of day that is causing me a lot of problems. I don't know. but yeah, it's been an interesting story thus far. Let me see what else I wanted to talk about. I don't know. There was something I wanted to say. But this question I have on the death rate. It's question 5. So Fauci is saying at this point, and he's changed over time, but he's saying at this point that the death rate is 0.6% for coronavirus, and so it just makes me want to ask the question: do you think we're overreacting to the novel disease that thus far has claimed almost 190,000 lives in the U.S. and almost 900,000 lives globally? And it's something I saw that Dr. Isaacson, Margaretha Isaacson, had said after all of this was over. There was that point in Kinshasa when she first came to Kinshasa, and they ended up putting a lot of the hospital workers on quarantine. They did contact tracing on Mainga's family and friends, quarantined some of them for like 3 weeks. And so years later, Dr. Isaacson was saying, well, maybe we overreacted a little bit, even though we really didn't have a choice. We had to do that. But I just wanted to ask you guys, what do you think? Because compared to a 0.6% death rate compared to a 90% death rate, do you think Americans have overreacted a little bit to COVID-19?
One problem with the data. 90% death rate is of Ebola symptomatic patients. Do you know how many are asymptomatic? COVID,
No.
That's the thing with COVID. The death rate takes into account asymptomatic people. Are they patients? Are they people sick? So if you switch around and look at people who are positive, the death rate is around 7%, which is big. So it all depends how you look at it. That's the thing with death rate when they talk about COVID, and we're having this debate between epidemiologists. Why are we taking into account in the death rate people who will not develop symptoms because they're contagious, but then it creates a different category, no longer patients with spreaders. You have people who have HIV who are asymptomatic, who will never develop the disease, but we've noticed they can. So it's 0.01% of people. It's super rare, but that exists. So Ebola has very few asymptomatic people, if not at all. And also there's another thing about COVID that makes it extremely more dangerous than Ebola. Ebola kills. It's a good thing. I know I sound horrible. It kills so fast that in 3 days they develop symptoms and they die. By this time, people who are trained are like, this is new. This is not normal. Shut down the area, send in the army. COVID doesn't kill fast enough. It takes weeks to develop into symptoms, and during that time it spreads. And at one point it starts killing and disabling. And the thing is that's why it's such a dangerous virus. That's why we used to call it disease X, a disease that's not lethal enough, that looks respiratory. It is not. It's airborne and looks like the flu. And when it develops into a lethal disease, it kills a lot of people. And here's the other thing. Remember, we have 0.6% total population of the world death rate. So that's a lot of people still. But for the first time in history, the entire economy in the world shut down for 2 months. We still got 900,000 people dead, with the whole world shut down. Think about it, without no confinement, no social distancing, and the numbers get closer to 7 million in the United States if we hadn't done this minimum. The model said 7.5 million people dead in January. My models, because it was 2.4% fatality rate. But now with 7%, I'm like, ooh, don't open and don't be stupid. But hey, we made a choice. So let's see what happens this winter.
Well,
Did y'all hear Donald Trump today talking about admitting that he intentionally misled us on the seriousness of COVID-19 in the beginning? I mean, anybody that was watching him could see that, but to have him actually admit something is
I thought it was I thought it was narcissistic and in denial. But now I'm discovering that he is truly a dangerous man. He is clever.
right.
He is smart. I thought he was one of these morons with narcissism and stuff. No,
An idiot.
he knows what he's doing. Everything's calculated.
Exactly.
And that makes him an extremely dangerous human being. He's no longer just dangerous because of his enablers and how people are divided. He's not a white supremacist. That's the horrible thing about Donald Trump. He uses white supremacy as well as he would use anything else. He will use anything to win. And when I say he's not a white supremacist, I'm not saying he's not racist. I'm saying he doesn't have time to think about that.
No.
It's not his hobby is not being into a group. It's about himself, and he hates everybody equally except his daughter because,
Well,
there you go. It's the only person I know I think he likes because when I look at how he talks about everybody else, Don Jr. a little bit, but you feel like. So what I'm saying is that now I'm extremely worried because that means he's willing to. I think he actually is well read and has read a lot of dictators and is dangerously close to destroying the shred of democracy we had left.
Well, that's what he told you. I mean, again, did anyone watch him? Does anyone look at the campaign before he won? He told you everything he's doing. It's just not like this is something that just came out of the air. He told you exactly what the hell he was going to do. And everybody said, oh, that idiot, key, because he looks like an idiot. And because we know his past, it's like a used car salesman kind of like thing. Nobody took him like, that's Donald. No, you go back and look at some of those campaign tapes. He told you exactly what he's going to do.
And I think he told us, but where he is deceitful is that there's a lot of thinking going behind that.
Yes, that's the deceit. Where people
like he looks like he's just I'm a bully, I'm a jock. No, this is a persona he puts together because it's always destabilized everybody around him. Oh, he's a rich guy, so he must be classy. Hey, beep, 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 let me grab you by the beep. People are so taken aback that it's a power move, I think that strategy's always worked. That guy's hostile from the start and wants me dead. Yes. And I barely said hello to him. I should really obey him.
Yes.
And it always worked. And it worked on, here's the thing. The US military, I'm sorry, those generals have proven they're not generals.
That's true.
They're cowards, because if I had known the president of the United States was an existential threat to the people, I don't care if people would have told me, oh, but that's going to destabilize a country. I would have resigned and talked openly.
That's right. That's right.
But no, they write books or they go to the Atlantic and say, hey, he upset me when he said that about my son. Nah. Instead of, oh my God, I need to stop that madman.
Well, that's what I was saying about the Congress. People were saying, well, Donald's a bully and the Congress is afraid to. Hey, another white man has never been afraid of another white man. Let's make that clear. Okay? They're not afraid. The Congress,
actually, let's just say that white supremacy was first tested in Europe on poor people. Trust me, white people can be afraid of other white people, but the codes are different.
Let's make a distinction. White people that are not poor are not afraid of white people.
Oh, no, no,
And
no,
those
no, no.
congressmen are not poor men. A lot of them are very, very, very wealthy men.
Oh, yeah, no, no, they're not
Okay,
scared.
so when
Well,
people say, "Well, they are," that's why I should have been more exact. But people say that they are bullied. The reason why everybody's quiet. Hell no, they're not. There's some wealthy, wealthy men in the Congress. There's few, and they got more money than Donald. They're not intimidated by Donald. They're quiet because they have a stake in his game.
oh, yeah. Well,
Has
here's the
nothing to do
thing.
with nothing.
If people think the real problems are the things Donald Trump puts on Twitter,
No,
nobody's going to be a problem to Congress. Because here's the thing about Congress. They write bills that are very complicated, but in the end screw us up.
that's
So
it.
nobody can criticize those bills. But then you have Donald Trump diverting everybody by saying outrageous stuff on Twitter. It's a very well-oiled strategy. And Democrats
It
are
is.
just, what are you doing? Democrats are like, hey, there's a fire going on. Stop that. Stop that. It's really the Democrats like, hey, stop that now. That's
Mhm.
mean. And I'm like, this guy's a dangerous man. He stomped on everything you thought was sacred. Dean Howard was asked to leave the campaign because he had done yeehaw. Big change of era. Like, I mean, um,
I
it's
was
bad.
reading something today about Mobutu. Um, well, I wanted to look at him a little bit because I was kind of impressed. I mean, this is just to show you how bad things are here in the United States now. I was impressed that the dictator offered his personal jet and allowed the doctors to gather up some supplies from Kinshasa to send down to the Boomba Zone when he first learned about the outbreak. And when I read that, I was like, you know what? We couldn't expect our dictator to do that. Uh, here we had Jared Kushner talking about the national stockpile. Was their stockpile, whoever they are. So I was looking at some stuff about Mobutu today, and one of the articles quoted some people that were saying he really was like a benevolent dictator. If that's not a contradiction in terms. But I also saw that he was born in La Sala. So, maybe he felt a special affinity to the area where Ebola broke out, even though Donald Trump doesn't seem to have any affinity for New York, where he has been for so long.
Mobutu
But
didn't. I mean, Mobutu didn't want to harm his people. The difference between Mobutu and Trump is Mobutu did never willfully harm his people. He grabbed from the bank. He was corrupt. Opponents disappeared, but he never intended to harm his people. He actually loved. I mean, he was a real war hero against Belgium, and like Gaddafi, over time he became insane. So, and it's true. Here's the lesson that Africa can give the entire world: don't let a man hold power for more than 5 years. That's the problem. Gaddafi was there 40 years, Mobutu 30 years, and Mobutu. I remember when he was forced to leave because Laurent Désiré Kabila had finally gotten to Kinshasa and had conquered the place. Mobutu said, "I never genocided you," which was true. You're going to face somebody who's dangerous. And guess what? Kabila started genociding people. And Mobutu was always talking about African philosophy and ideals, national ones, truly traditional ones. But Kabila, his ideology was Marxism, an invention of Europe. And this is an old thing in Europe. Some people say is that every time you're trying to export Marxism or liberalism in Europe to another culture, it ends up in bloodshed. because it did end up in bloodshed also in
Mm-hmm.
Europe. So we know that these ideologies destroy nations. Why do we want, and the problem is the young idealists in the 70s, the doctors were all going there thinking they were still educating people out of the dark age. They still had this in mind. They were against racism. They don't
Mm-hmm.
hate people. That because now, because of the Nazis, we don't understand that racism does not mean genociding right away. When you listen to people say I'm not racist, it's like racism is hating. That's at the end. It doesn't start that way. And the thing is, you feel that nobody notices that they're still exploiting Africa. And Mobutu was. It's like what was his name? He lost his throne because of his mistress, Zimbabwe. How can I forget? The Zimbabwe president
Mm-hmm.
who had to leave power a year ago. What's his name? I forgot. But a lot of these guys really started as heroes.
So
Trump is not like that. That's what I mean. Trump didn't fight for his people ever.
Yeah. Right. Think people, you're a loser and a sucker.
But I thought, in America, the military was sacred, but it seems that Trump voters don't care anymore.
It's not just Trump, it's all the enablers around him that, Trump could not do anything that he's doing unless the rest of the folks are sitting back there waiting for their benefits. Again. You know what I'm saying? So whether it's the military, whether it's the Congress, he could not do any of these things that he's doing unless they sit back there lethargic, waiting for their shit to drop in their mouths. That's what it's all about. And they don't care either.
No, and that's true. Like a lot of Trump voters are not quote unquote extremist. And the problem that what they show on television is, Trump supporters at rallies are not the ones who make him win.
No.
They're not enough. Those who make him win don't go to rallies. And what I heard from those people when I asked them why they voted Trump is just, I look out for my family only. He was giving tax cuts. And that's what you're saying. It's all about me.
Well, that's what some of my neighbors, I tell you, I spoke to a couple of neighbors, and one of them, it said he supported Trump. And I said, oh, it's fabulous in every way. But, and he said that his reason for supporting Trump was strictly economics.
And it's a dumb thing.
And I said, really? And he said, really? Oh, I said, oh, okay. He said, because I said, but so it was okay with him. Were we watching the same rallies or no? But Trump voters are willing to go past. He can do anything and about anything. And obviously, if this person says that's the reason why he voted for Trump, is because he's a businessman and it's economics. So right, yeah. Well, of course, he's talking to the wrong person. He says, well, after all, I'm a Christian.
Christians are used to killing a lot of people too.
Well, that was the thing. And when he said he's a Christian, I asked him, had you noticed I was black, or because I am now? And I did tell him, and actually I was really trying to keep myself together because I was burning up inside. I said, well, I'll leave you with this. You could put me in the room with 1,000 Muslims and I would never flinch. You put me in a room with 1,000 Christians and I'm scared as hell. Okay? And that's
run! They're going to convert us.
No, that's the truth. That's coming from a black person. And I meant that from the heart. I would never flinch in a room full of Muslims. A room full of Christians, I am very afraid.
Yep. Because we don't strike right away.
So he looked at me and I looked at him and I'm like, have a nice day. On my Christmas list, bam.
But what really worries me is that there's been always a lot of conservative against tax movements, but they had boundaries. One boundary was, we want to vote for somebody who's going to cut taxes. He raped 20 women, he used the N-word, and he grabs people by the pussy and no, we can find somebody else competent to cut taxes without having this guy, you know. But no, not
No, you're not.
anymore, because and what really bothers me with Trump voters saying, "Oh, it's all about economics," guys. In the past, we had people about economics who farted on stage, and we said, "No, not good enough in that case." So
Right.
why is this guy saying people are rapists? Deep down inside, that means you believe it a little bitty bit, like
No, you
tiny
do.
bit.
And I had another conversation with another person that I was talking to at the Caucasian. I told him, when you say I'm not a racist, she said I'm not a racist. I said, well, we discover new things about ourselves every day. I discover new things about myself. Maybe you just discovered that you are racist. So maybe you go home and have your Xanax or your wine or whatever you do and sit down and meditate for a while, because you might have just discovered, no, really, because people, you'd be surprised with the definition of racism for white folk.
Mm-hmm.
It's different from mine,
It's
So,
just that, yeah.
I had to explain to her that maybe she just, found out something new about herself. And I
Entry
meant that from the very bottom of
910.
my heart.
Connected to
Maybe you just found out something new.
PSKHEOP LRQ6R and LG style.
What's that?
That was that's
So,
computer
you
voice.
guys hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you get a virus?
what is that?
That sounds like a virus.
Yeah,
I think you have a virus, because usually when you have something like
yeah,
that pop up,
that was a different speaker. I'm trying to see. Can you hear me?
we can, but you drop in and
No.
out a lot. I think the internet is
Okay.
simply not really good. Let me see if I can cut my camera off.
Hello,
If I
hello.
cut my camera, you maybe have more bandwidth.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes, but your mouth is not moving. You're hesitating. It's hesitating. Right. Okay. Well, it's almost, what time is it? It's 7:03 now anyway, so maybe we can.
You're back.
We can't hear her at all, Rick.
She's on mute.
Oh, okay.
She
Guess
should
we were
unmute
live.
her. You're on mute, Michelle. There you go.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can't
Yes.
hear you.
Okay. So yeah, let's stop. I'm going to try to investigate how to if there's a way to increase bandwidth. I don't know what's going on, but I had a hard time hearing you guys the whole time,
Oh.
and that's not fun for me. So I'm going to see what options I might have. This is not working.
I think it's
very well
because
for me.
it's maybe the software, because since you're going live, you're the one recording. So your computer at the same time is getting all the download. So that might explain why it's so heavy on your computer right now.
Okay. Yeah, but whatever it is, I need a better solution, because, I can't really enjoy the conversation if I can't hear what you're saying. It's like you were going in and out, in and out. And then I kept getting knocked out of the broadcast altogether. So I need to do some troubleshooting. So anyway, I mean, I don't want to cut you guys off in the middle of a sentence or a thought, but any final thoughts before we close?
Venita?
Okay.
No.
Okay. I do want to say I had to laugh out loud when I read that piece about the professors, the two professors that came in from to do the 6-day study
Oh,
and ended up being there for 24 hours. That was,
Yeah,
you know,
Ron, and they were right, by the way. And I love the pilots too, who keep the engine
oh, the
going like,
pilots.
get out, the airplane got, get out,
Those,
and just.
those pilots were not playing. They didn't even break. They flung that door open
I'm not
range.
crazy. You guys are.
Okay.
Goodbye.
They flung that door open with the wheels still moving. Hurry up, get off here, hurry up. And he went and closed that door. That plane was in the air. Those
They've
pilots
got
were
to
not
make a
trying to do
movie
all
about
that.
that, about this whole story. It would be incredible. If it's all directed. It would be insanely incredible.
Yes, Rick, I died. You know, I read it a couple times. I laughed so hard. I'm like, those pilots are not playing with you today. They didn't want to do it anyway. Okay, they told you they weren't trying to do all that from the beginning. But since you're gonna sit there gonna do it, then when I put them brakes on and when those wheels hit that brake to get your behind off this plane, the door barely stopped. And I was like, wow, those pilots were not playing at all. They were definitely
And
there against their will, and they made it perfectly clear that they were there against their will. They weren't trying to do all this stuff like this.
and think about it. It's a dictatorship, a military dictatorship, and pilots are saying you got to fly to Bambuku, and they're like,
Yes,
"Fuck you!" Like literally, like they rebel against their generals. Like the generals are like, I can get you killed and your entire family. The guy's like, I don't care. I'm not
I
going.
don't care. I'm not going. Okay. All right. And see, that's why that's what I said. We don't have backbone. We don't have no heart here. What happened? I had to look. I said, you know what? They made me smile. I said, you know. And they were like, it's almost like they were telling us, don't even breathe. Just get the hell off the plane. Get the hell off the plane. Don't talk. Shut up. Get off. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
But
it's
that
also
was
that these guys. They deep down, here's the thing: when you're European and you go into war zone and stuff, deep down
sure.
inside, have a consulate. You've got
Mm-hmm.
diplomatic forces. If you get lost, they're going to send a helicopter and they're going to have a crowdfunding. But two pilots from the Zairean army, they're disposable. They're not staying. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
We know nobody cares about us. We know we're
That's
gone.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm
Bye-bye.
saying. Exactly. Exactly. And I don't think even here, it's the same way. We don't care about our military people. We can tell we don't care about how we treat them when they get back.
Oh, we
They're
don't.
disposable. The ones that don't die, we do the thing about the United States is that they're just as low, actually lower than a lot of the countries. But we do everything so pretty, like.
There are two major epidemics that came to America through us not treating properly veterans. Number one was the heroin addiction in America, the heroin epidemic. That started with Vietnam because these guys were getting hooked there to survive the horrific combat against the Viet Cong. And when they came back, there was no heroin on the streets. So they started bringing in the heroin to get hooked on in the United States, and they totally And the other one we all forgot about. Nobody ever talks about it anymore since the second Gulf War. But during the first Gulf War, how many veterans came back and complained of a strange syndrome called the Gulf War syndrome? We never talk about that thing anymore.
No, they dismissed it. They dismissed it. Told me nothing wrong with them. Nothing wrong
It disappeared.
Nothing.
From the public consciousness. This was a real thing, and those symptoms were strange. Either uranium or a pathogen that the army had used, but nobody cares about that, because
no. So we're no better. And once again, except we make things look pretty. Everything is illusion here, and that Michelle and I discuss it all the time. Nothing is real. Nothing you see is real. Nothing around you is real. It's all an illusion.
It's all a narrative.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
the military, when you think about it, there's a old say, and I'm sure it's true of all nations that went through wars, but Europe with 450 wars in 5 centuries, there was an old say: war epidemic, famine. That's the order. War comes to a place. No, it was war, famine, epidemic. So war comes to a place. Soldiers feed on the land. They destroy the land. And soldiers also bring pathogens. But people who used to eat can't eat anymore. So their immune system goes down. So they get infected with a disease through famine. And the idea was this is the order of catastrophe: war, famine, epidemic. Always. And I think it's true, unfortunately. You look all the zones where we have epidemic, and Laurie Garrett touches barely on that, and I understand Michelle, but still, they've all been torn by revolutions and wars in recent years before having the epidemic. Zaire had just become independent after a brutal colonial independence war. Bolivia had gone through a violent, brutal, bloodshed revolution, etc., etc. The Black Plague came just after the last crusade, and so on and so on. 19th century cholera in Europe was due to the Napoleonic Wars, and so on. So, war, and in China, people don't fight, but, it's the ecosystems. But the coronavirus would have not spread without travel. And this is the problem today. Now it's no longer wars that carry pathogens. It's tourism. Again, tourism work. Like you see meat from Australia being mixed with meat in Japan and then thrown into a place in Brazil to be packed and sent to America.
Yes.
Yup. That's not very clever.
I can't.
But for whatever reason, that's cheaper than having a cow raised in America. For whatever reason, this whole mess is cheaper.
Okay, now that I'm totally disgusted, I appreciate that last information that you gave me.
Yeah, always look at packages in supermarkets, because once I did see contains meat from Germany, Australia, and I was like, what? But that's ground beef. No, is that possible?
That's why I don't do beef. I don't do beef. I don't. And I told Carl, and I told my husband, we need to get some chickens. Of course, all my suburban neighbors, as middle class people,
they're gonna be like,
all the
excuse
white
me.
people or in our block, and that's all there is. We'll go crazy. Oh, the Walkers got chickens in their yard now, Harold. But we need to get some chickens, Rick.
Yeah, absolutely. Eggs. No milk, though.
And I said that, and Carl said no, Venita, because you know what happened? You'll start going out there talking to them, brushing them. Next thing you know, they have names. They're walking around the house.
No, they're in an airplane, and you're on the same flight.
Right. And that's what Carl said. You too nurturing. No, they'll be in the house, and we'll have 20 chickens with all these names and stuff. You begin the bath and showers, and next thing you know, we won't be eating them. No.
I know. I had a friend who bought chickens, and here's the thing that happened is that she was like, oh, well, they're mean. Yeah, they're chickens. Chickens are not nice. Chickens are not like pets, But I thought it would be nice addition, but they fight and they hurt each other. Yeah, they're chickens. Chickens in a cage. And she was like, yeah, but I thought, I'm like, do you ever Google stuff before you buy stuff? I mean, it's insane. In our time, I saw people who have raccoon pets, and I'm like, here's the thing about these animals. They carry epidemics that have not yet. Don't go. You know what? We've got the dog and the cat. That's enough. We're good. We don't need a raccoon. It's like those drug addicts that go from heroin to crocodile. Like, why do you need that? You already had heroin.
Oh, Rick. So
that reminds me of one of my questions about the vivisection, which is animal experimentation. And that's the thing. Rick, your camera is off, right?
Yeah, it's for your bandwidth, but let me see if it works again, if you're not getting too choppy.
Oh, okay. I think maybe that did help a little bit. But, there's some pieces in this book that, like I said, there's so much detail that it's hard to like really focus on anything in particular, but it did catch my eye when she talked about the vivisection in passing. But what she was saying was the guy Geoffrey Platt, who worked at the lab in London, lab was hidden from public view because there was a strong anti-vivisection or anti-animal experimentation movement in Britain. And so it just made me want to ask you guys if you have any feelings or thoughts about animal experimentation. So, like I'm thinking of that part where Pat Webb Laurie Garrett went into excruciating detail about what the P3 lab was like at the CDC where Pat Webb worked, and how difficult it was to have on, all these pairs of gloves and garbs and manipulate test tubes and petri dishes and, and try not to cut yourself. And that the animals, one of the big risks was that the animals would fight back. They might bite you. They might scratch you.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was like, well, yeah, because, you're trying to kill them.
Worse than killing them.
Yeah.
Worse. Making them suffer on purpose. And it's the whole thing of vivisection. People are okay not using vivisection, but that means the next step is we're using it on humans. And who are the humans we're going to test on? You already know, Michelle. You already read the book about that.
Yes, I do.
Animals are there because it's the only way to get treatments out. And I understand that it's unbearable suffering. You have to understand that we're testing oncology drugs on beagles, not just monkeys. It's pets, animals. And there's the famous magic mouse from Regeneron. So Regeneron is a pharmaceutical company that became extremely famous and powerful in just overnight because one of their scientists had come up with a mouse who's modified genetically so that it can sustain all diseases and be tested on constantly. And that magic mouse is genetically engineered so that you can actually cut down the testing time so much that you get to human trials in just 1 year. And it's they call that the magic mouse because that mouse can react to all diseases and not die. So so the poor mouse is engineered to suffer forever, never-ending cycle of experiments. Of course, they have several now, but that's how it started. So yeah, vivisection is cruel, but that begs the question: what is, when we have like right now coronavirus? I can tell you a lot of monkeys are dead. We infected a lot of monkeys.
What's this thing about vero cells? Where you grow the cells in order to.
So you take stem cells from an animal who died. No, you develop. Yeah, you develop. You develop a culture of animal cells that have the function of organic cells in a liquid. So even if the animal is dead, you still have its live cells, and you contaminate them. And you see, and that allows you to realize if a virus is destructive. For example, what they observe should make anybody shiver and panic, and they panicked, all the cells were dead. That means it's a very lethal agent because we don't die, our organs fail during diseases because the cells that carry our whole function have been destroyed by the virus, who sucked on their DNA to multiply. And once it was done with the cell is dead. So that's how you end up with organ failure because the organ doesn't have most of its cells anymore. It dies. So that's what people don't realize. When they say not everybody dies directly of COVID, nobody dies directly of Ebola. We die of the bleeding. But you say you don't die directly of the disease because it's not the virus that came out of your body and started knocking you out. I'm sorry. It's just, this is where you see the propaganda. because coronavirus kills directly. If it's the cause of death, it's the cause of death. Even if it went through your brain, it doesn't mean, oh, it was indirect. And we're trying desperately to say it's indirect. Oh, it's old people, it's people underlying health conditions. I always remind people the most important risk factor is obesity, and 30% of Americans are. So it's not just a minority of people who are going to be affected, but it's always like that, And so those cells are very precious. And COVID, that's what the Chinese doctors did, and they saw what they saw, and they were like, oh, and they contacted the authorities, who told them, we're coming to your home. Not the hospital. We're coming. We have a car. Please come in. Yeah, they kidnapped their own doctors to shut them down. That's. And I don't know. Maybe Trump is jealous of China. China has powers he'd like to use.
Right.
No more testing, and if you're sick, you're put into a secret place.
Well, Rick, I mean, that's not far-fetched, Rick.
It's not. That's why I'm worried.
Again, they have experimented on Black, and they have experimented on me.
Yeah. And they're still experimenting right now. Herd immunity. That's what they're doing right now.
But I'm saying just from our history, we know that the folks that want to experiment on is us. That's why it's getting set up. Well, in the Black and minority areas where they're Blacks with high blood pressure and diabetes and obesity, I'm watching them setting this up for the last few months.
So white people have the same ailments.
When it comes time to have these half-ass COVID shots to put out there so they can use as experiment, where do you think they're going? Well, the first people we think that should have these, as usual, they've done it before, is
actually,
the minorities. So it's, they won't become this neighborhood. I tell you that much, Rick, that much I know.
There's a funny story, because right now vaccine candidates are having a tough time recruiting people from minorities for the clinical trials, because the problem is they don't know if it will work on everybody, and nobody wants to enroll. So to your point, people are aware that, you know what, I'm going to stay away from that thing.
Well, yes, we are very aware. And that's why it's going to be a problem. It will always be a problem. I'll be walking around with a mask on until I'm dead. And that's 90. How many more years ago? A long time, Rick.
Yep. But I think that we'll know if a vaccine is safe immediately, because dangerous side effects from vaccines are in 2 weeks to 6 weeks. So we'll know immediately. The problem is, will they report it? That's my biggest worry. And Russia right now, I looked at their study, their phase 2 study. It's not that ideal, the data. It doesn't show that much protection. So I'm worried that they rush them for political reasons. And once the real good vaccine is out, nobody's going to take it anymore, because nobody trusts anybody anymore. And that will be catastrophic.
Right.
Yeah, and I just want to do a commercial before we close about Laurie Garrett. She has an active presence on Twitter, and she's really, it seems to me, paying close attention to coronavirus, and bring her kind of moment by moment reactions to what's going on with coronavirus and COVID-19. And so one of the things she was talking about today was the AstraZeneca trials.
One of the most promising.
And they have, at least, it looks like, one person who had some kind of damage to his spinal cord.
Yes, I heard about that today.
Yeah, but it's normal procedure to suspend a clinical trial. They just don't report it in the press, but all clinical trials go through that. When you have one death, the clinical trial is suspended immediately, and it's investigated. And after a while, you know whether or not it was associated with the drug. But it's normal procedure. As soon as you have something odd, you have to stop. It's the rule. So what's reassuring is that AstraZeneca did it and accepted the fact that their share would fall in the NASDAQ. So for once, pharmaceutical companies are aware of one thing. If they mess this one up, they're going to lose money, because nobody's going to trust them anymore after that. And the trust is already really, really small. So I think they realize that this time It's not like going to be like H1N1. They don't have a choice. They have to
Right.
succeed, or if they
Mhm.
don't, I mean, what am I saying? The CDC is already gone, so everything
Right.
can happen at that
Right.
point.
Right. All right, y'all. Let's call it a night.
Okay.
Well,
Thank
take
you
care,
so
everybody.
much for the gruesome conversation.
Well, Michelle, we don't have a lot of contagion rate in New York City, so I'm wondering if I couldn't go and see you one day, if that's okay, even if from a distance, say hello in person.
Yeah. And I mean, we can get together before then, but September 30th, you're going to have indoor dining now in New York.
Yeah, let's do that before that. Like it's strange because I'm like, guys, seriously, what do you not understand in the word airborne? Like,
Yeah, I don't know who's going indoors. You can go indoors if you want to. I will not be eating indoors anywhere. Rick, you can
yeah,
see
no,
her.
I won't.
You can
I
see her.
would tell everybody outdoors is fine,
Yeah, yeah.
while being
All
reasonable
right,
about the crowd. But
Right.
indoors
we'll
is
make a
stupid.
date of it. We'll make an outdoor date.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm thinking it's strange how people are lacking creativity in the. I mean, I kind of like the outdoor thing in my neighborhood. It looks like Italian cities,
It's
with all
cool.
the
Yeah,
terraces. So I'm
cool.
okay with that, and I think it's not that bad an idea. And cars, I'm not missing cars,
Yeah.
so maybe we
No,
keep that from the pandemic for the future.
that's what I'm saying. That's a good
Right.
thing. Good thing. Well, Rick, thank you so much. It's
Take care,
always a
everybody.
pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you next week. And one
Bye.
day, Michelle, we can meet
With
too.
pleasure. Everybody, take
Okay.
care.
Good night, Michelle.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Good night.
Yeah. Okay. Good night.